cult led by Paul Mackenzie. The victims were convinced they would enter heaven by starving themselves to death. Onto this now, Burkina Faso's Transitional Parliament has passed legislation outlawing LGBT practices, introducing fines, prison sentences and sanctions for those convicted. The Persons and Family Code law, the latest in a series of African countries to criminalize the LGBTQI community activity, also tightens rules on nationality and stateless people. The legislation, passed anonymously by the unelected 71-member Transitional Parliament, is awaiting the signature of a military junta leader, Ibrahim Traore. The law provides for a prison sentence ranging from 2 to 5 years and a fine. And the South African National Congress Party says the South Africa Communist Party's decision to contest elections independently has sparked a serious debate on dual membership within its ranks. Currently, the ANC constitution allows members to belong to both the ANC and SACP. Following the SACP's resolution, who are part of the Government of National Unity, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula says it would be difficult for them to continue to share their election strategy with election opponents.
It's not the question of whether the ANC expelled. The resolution itself is bringing into question membership duality of the ANC. It's not a question of threatening people or saying to people, because you've got dual membership, go. It's a decision that in its implication means that if you stand as a ward councillor in a ward, you stand opposite to the ANC. It brings into question duality. You are a party, you are contesting the same ward we are contesting. So who brought about the question of duality in the context of this decision? It is the party, because now we can no longer share the same things we used to do. Election strategy, planning together to fight for the consolidation of the NDR.
And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is set to hold a meeting today to address illegal immigration, which has been or become the dominant political issue in the country. The country is facing a record number of asylum claims and arrivals by migrants in small boats from Europe, including over 28,000 this year. Starmer expressed frustration at the level of illegal crossings and the use of hotels to house asylum seekers. The government will consider options such as cracking down on pull factors and illegal working, exploring options around digital ID, acceleration of hotel closures, and exploring better forms of accommodation. Under British law, the government must provide accommodation for asylum seekers who would otherwise be homeless. A recap of your top story. Ghana's Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono has dismissed allegations of stated misbehaviour established and recommended for her removal from office as unfounded and politically motivated. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapela Mahape.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Premier League clubs have splashed out more than ever before during the recently concluded transfer window, while a group of former Premier League footballers lost tens of millions of US dollars because of their financial advisors. I'll have details of these and other stories at 4:30.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is exactly 6 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Here's what we've got on your agenda this afternoon as we talk Africa and business. We'll focus on the toxic spill in Zambia, and there has been a preliminary report by an environmental company called Dritzit. It found that the Chinese-owned Sino-Metals Leach Zambia copper mine has covered up the extent of a disastrous toxic spill that happened in the northern city city of Kitwe in Zambia. So we'll be following up on that with our correspondent Arthur Sikopo Davis. Also a look at the G20 colloquium, a look at some earnings and figures coming out for the JSE listed company ShopRite. It is the grocery store. And then also a conversation with Standard Bank this afternoon. They've announced the launch of their innovative Sustainability Academy. What is that all about? That and a whole lot more coming up for you this afternoon on Africa in Business.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We begin here this afternoon. The Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperation, in partnership with the Southern African Liaison Office, hosted a colloquium today, the 2nd of September, on South Africa's readiness to assume the G20 presidency in 2025. The event brought together voices from different engagement groups, from labour and youth to women and business, to share their expectations as well as their priorities. Our reporter, Lebogang Mabange, has that story.
South Africa's upcoming G20 presidency is being framed as an opportunity to elevate the voices of developing countries while addressing pressing global challenges. For organised labour, it's a chance to push for equality and social justice. Matthew Parks, Parliamentary Coordinator for the Congress of South African Trade Unions, speaking on behalf of the Labour 20 or L20, says workers expect the summit to tackle inequality and job creation.
As organised labour, we view South Africa's hosting it this year as a chance really to push the Global South agenda, and specifically, to your earlier comments in the opening about a platform to raise working class interests. Chair, I think also want to see how do you really nudge the G20 broadly into a platform which lifts Global South concerns and champions their interests, and not just simply to be dominated by the Global North, and to look at some of the specific themes, inequality, poverty, job creation, sustainable development, etc.
Parks added that having business, labour and civil society at the table alongside government is crucial for meaningful outcomes.
And again, Chair, we think it's quite useful that labour, civil society, business have been given space to really be almost in effect co-hosts with the government. I think, Chair, that speaks to South Africa's progressive political centre, the social compact discourse of South Africa, etc. And I think for our side as Labour, we try to see how to use the space to develop concrete outcomes, which can really lead to improved living conditions for working class communities across the world.
For young people, the G20 platform is seen as critical in shaping pathways to employment and climate action. Moeketsi Kwahela, co-chair of the Youth 20 or Y20, says the youth engagement tracks reflect issues young South Africans face daily.
Our work has been taking place through 5 thematic tracks or 5 thematic areas. The first one really has been on climate change and environmental sustainability. And, the second thematic area that, has been leading our work in terms of the negotiations that started earlier in March, it has been on inclusive economic growth and employment. Again, what are those pathways to prosperity that we need to consider for young people, given that we know, again, in our country, if you follow the news, Stats SA would regularly release the quarter labor surveys. And again, it's us as young people who are making the loudest noise in those surveys.
On the gender front, the Women 20 or W20 has already been active in building momentum. Professor Nania Bolamela, co-chair of W20 South Africa, despite limited resources, says their commitment remains strong.
We have made a lot of progress with very few resources, I must say. And I also need to emphasize that all of our delegates are volunteers, so they all have other work that they need to focus on. But I think that we're all very passionate about what we're doing and what we need to do for women, by women.
With South Africa set to take on the G20 presidency, the colloquium highlighted both the opportunities and the weight of expectations. Stakeholders say they are ready to use the platform to shape global priorities in favor of inclusive growth and social justice. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we take you now to Zambia. Now, it has been reported that a preliminary report by South Africa-based environmental company Dritsit has found that Chinese-owned Sinometal's Leach Zambia copper mine has covered up the extent of a disastrous toxic spill that happened near the northern city of Kitwe. Now, this toxic spill polluted a major river in that area. According to the reports, the environmental cleanup company, which was contracted by Sinometal's Leach Zambia to investigate the accident, says its 2-month investigation found that the disaster resulted in the release of 1.5 million tons of toxic material. Now, that's at least 30 times more than Sinometals admitted to at the time. For more on this, we're joined on the line by our correspondent in Zambia, Arthur Sikopo Davies. A very good afternoon to you, Arthur. Good to have you with us once again.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
So perhaps let's backtrack a little bit, and if you could give us a bit of background on the dam collapse that occurred earlier on this year. It was February the 18th, and what impact this has had on the Kafue River and the community.
Yes, so the impact, we'll start first from the time that the accident happened. So we didn't know, people didn't know that what really was happening. Even the locals there did not know what really was happening. Not until I think after some time when the mine authorities confirmed that was the tailings dams that had collapsed. So after collapse, I was on the ground and talked to people there and did meet people around there. So some of them were literally passing through the same, acidic water or the same, dangerous effluent which was coming from the mine with their feet. The water would, the same effluent would go into their water for drinking. And the place was quite smelly, and they could feel that itchiness on them. Not until the mine confirmed and the government moved in, and equally the minister confirmed. So people were not aware, not until it was confirmed that it was the tailings dams that had collapsed, and people had already, drank some water from there and all that. So then, when the water, when the effluent now went into the Kafue River and the Mwambashi River, people started seeing fish dying off in massive, at massive scales. Fish that dying off, other aquatic organisms dying off, and just their fields around there. Just 2 days after the whole incident happened, the fields were brown in terms of they were dry, because then they were green. And it was in the rainy season, and so the fields were dry. The grass, which was green, was brown. So everything was burnt by the same, acid. And it's only obviously made by God's grace. God's grace that some people, survived that, incident. So when the water, when the effluent got into the Kafue River and went down into other places, fish started dying off. Of course, government moved in and started spraying some lime. Just to try to mitigate that particular impact. Then fast forward, we've seen people around there demanding for compensation, and the government, of course, also trying to push the mine to compensate. But what they have been promised, and what government has instructed the mine to pay these people is what is considered to be meager. And because some people were getting as little as were supposed to get as little as 400 kwacha, which is just like I think about $8, so to say, in terms of compensation. So there has been this uproar that this money that people are being compensated is little, and we can't continue in this particular trajectory. And as we speak today, there are some 47 residents that have gone to court, demanding that they be compensated and other remedial measures be taken.
I mean, apart from the measures that you're speaking about now, this report that's been put together by Dritsit, it claims that the spill severity was underrepresented by Sino when it was originally reported. They cited at least 1.5 million tons of pollutants as actually what went into the river. Can you take us through that report and how Sinometal's Leach Zambia copper mine has reacted to these findings?
Yes. So initially, the figures that were given by Sinometals in the initial stages are said to be lower than what this particular company, had to or they came up with after they were contracted. So this company was contracted by Sinometals to give a report, but we don't know what really transpired. Then we are told that they had to cut the contract that they gave. Sinometals had to cut the contract with this same company. So and that is how even this other that is how their investigation in terms of the figures being quite higher than what was being as said by Sinometals came to be known. So we don't know, maybe they had some disagreements themselves, and for Sinometals, of course, to just cut that particular contract which they gave to this particular company. So that is when everything now started being reviewed. But Sinometals has been approached by media locally and, of course, internationally. Sinometals has been declining to, comment further on that particular aspect. And they are saying that, those figures that the company which they themselves contracted are false. And they still stand by, the earlier figures, which they say that, it was just about 50 million liters that was spilled into the environment and, of course, into the water bodies. So at the moment, we seem to see even the government being not being so pushy on Sinometals itself.
And can you talk to us about that? Because that's quite peculiar. What has been the government's reaction? Have there been any fines meted out on Sinometals regarding this?
So yes, the government had set some compensation figure, which they said was supposed to be. They were supposed to be paid 16 million kwacha. Let me just convert that into dollars. But they were supposed to compensate the people around there with 16 million kwacha. That is the amount which the government, through the Minister of Okoba Belt and Mines, communicated to the media and, of course, to the mine entity. But this 16 million kwacha, when you divide it with the people that are affected, and especially the loss that they got, it is very little. Somebody could be getting somewhere around maybe $7 when they had planted a big field. So those were some of the concerns, and the government is being seen to be not to be so pushy on Sinometals, and some critics are saying that a government is not trying to do that because this is a Chinese company, and obviously government, because our country as Zambia is trying to restructure the debt with the Chinese. So they're not trying to push the Chinese into the corner, maybe for avoidance of jeopardizing the other arrangement in terms of debt paying. That is what some critics would say and some analysts would say. But we don't know how true that is. That is.
Arthur, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon and see what environmental groups will be doing as far as this is concerned. But we thank you very much for that update. That's Arthur Sikopo Davies, our correspondent in Zambia. And quite uncanny, though, because Dritsit, the company that was hired to conduct this research, their contract was terminated by Sinometals the day before their final report was due. And so, one can look at that situation and come to whatever conclusion they want to. But once again, Sinometals in Zambia disputing the magnitude of the impact that this burst wall has had on the toxicity that has now gone into the major rivers in Zambia. Takes us to 21 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. In just a moment, a conversation with Standard Bank.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Cette peur d'un point de non-retour nucléaire suffit-elle selon vous à légitimer une telle offensive, Monsieur Talati?
Absolument pas du tout. Cela fait plus de 30 ans que l'Israël crie haut et fort sur les toits, où il veut se faire entendre que l'Iran serait à 1 an pour obtenir l'arme nucléaire. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 6 mois. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 2 semaines pour obtenir son arme nucléaire. Et curieusement, jusqu'à ce jour, il n'y a toujours aucune preuve que l'Iran a obtenu cette arme nucléaire en dépit des déclarations d'Israël et de certaines puissances parfois.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It has gone exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Now, Standard Bank has announced the launch of its innovative Sustainability Academy. So what is this? It's a comprehensive learning platform designed to bridge the sustainability knowledge gap as well as empower business clients across the continent. With practical sustainability and environmental, social and government solutions. The Academy addresses a rather pressing need and a pressing challenge in today's business landscape, while many companies do recognize the importance of sustainability. For more on this, we're joined by Dr. Manessa Alagbaso, Executive Head for Business Ecosystems and Sustainability for Business and Commercial Banking at Standard Bank. A very good afternoon. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, Thami, and good afternoon to your listeners.
So, Doctor, what specific gap in the market prompted Standard Bank to launch the Sustainability Academy? And how significant is the sustainability knowledge deficit, specifically among African businesses?
Thami, the specific gap we have addressed through this academy relates to sustainability in general across the board. We may single out ESG from time to time, but there are different aspects of sustainability related to climate change, related to environment and biodiversity, related to social sustainability and economic sustainability that we aim to address through this academy. And in terms of its significance, Africa really has to do a lot more to compete in the coming low carbon economy. We have everything that it takes to really be at the forefront in a low carbon economy. It will be really unfortunate if Africa still has to fall behind when we have all of the resources that drives sustainability in a low carbon economy. And hence, that is the significance. Africa's population is going to probably double in the next couple of decades. There's going to be urban migration. There's going to be need for food security, and there's going to be need for energy. So it is really vital that the businesses, especially the small and medium enterprises that drives Africa's economy, do understand what it is that sustainability it entails at a global level and at a local level where they operate. And it is equally important that they're able to not only apply this, but understand and leverage the opportunities that come with it.
Well, it's quite interesting and noteworthy here is that you as a bank are offering access to this academy absolutely free. But could you take us through the business case for this investment and how it fits into the bank's broader strategy of moving beyond traditional banking services?
The business case is simple. It's a long-term play. Firstly, our purpose, the reason we exist, Swiss Africa is our home. We drive our growth. So we feel obligated to make sure that as far as possible, African businesses transition successfully to a low carbon economy. Banking generally is a derived industry. We do well when economies do well. We do well when businesses are successful. So if any of these businesses succeed because of the academy, we would have done our job, and we'll rather have all of them being successfully transitioned, and then we can compete as financial services. But if any of these businesses are not able to transition successfully or close down in the process, not only will it impact the local economy in terms of job creation and economic growth, it is going to impact our operations as well, and every other bank that operates in that economy. So literally, the business case here is to drive business growth, and when these businesses grow, we will definitely realize the benefit that comes from it. Financially. Sorry, Thami.
Yes,
just one last bit on that.
Actually, I was about to ask you about that financial bit, so please do go ahead.
Exactly. So financially, we collaborate with Microsoft. We use the community training platform that Microsoft and Philanthrosoft develops, and that comes at a cost that we bear as a bank. However, we are also in talks and collaborating with development finance institutions and multilateral organizations and universities. So going forward, these other partners and stakeholders will co-create the content for the academy, which will still be deployed for free. And there are opportunities for some of these development finance institutions to use their technical assistance money to support the specific group of businesses that they have interest in, like women-owned and women-led businesses, youth businesses, small businesses in rural areas. So again, that's the reason I say it's a long-term play. Mm-hmm. So we are bearing the cost at inception, but we reckon that as the academy gets entrenched and takes root, we will have stakeholders who will share in that cost to make sure that small businesses out there have opportunity to learn without having to lay out enormous cost for it.
It's quite clear, as you put it, Doctor, that yours is a long-term vision and it's a long-term investment. But given the current economic pressure across the continent, how do you convince businesses that investing time in sustainability training is actually worthwhile, especially when resources are limited and immediate financial returns may not be obvious?
Before we launched the academy, we piloted it with businesses across 7 countries, 93 of them in total. And one of the outcomes, we were quite surprised at not only how committed they were, but at the time at which they actually went through the modules. Some of them 1 a.m. or 4 a.m. So literally, these businesses have already understood that climate change is no longer a hoax. Many of them are feeling the effect, the impact. If they're not feeling it directly, they're feeling it in the value chain in which they operate, where they're being asked about their green credentials, where they're being asked to demonstrate how they produce their products to be able to participate or to be able to command premium pricing for their products. So it's a choice between the business resilience and growth versus doing nothing and then risk the business going out of business. I do believe we are fortunate we deal with entrepreneurs, and they may not have a lot of resources, but when something like this comes along that is valuable, that will lead to their business survival in the long term, we have already seen the demonstration that they are willing and they are going to do the training already. Since launch last week, we are close to 500 registrations and completion already. It's just an indication that yes, they are busy, but for something valuable, they will make the time.
Dr. Manasseh Alagbaso, thank you so much for your time and wishing you all the best with the Sustainability Academy.
Thank you, Thami, and do have a good day.
You have a good one too. Thank you. That's Dr. Manasseh Alagbaso. He's Executive Head, Business Ecosystems and Sustainability for Business and Commercial Banking at Standard Bank. He takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African Time as we head over now to the markets desk, where Chanduko Legege is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tommy. Good afternoon. $1 is trading at 17 Rand 61 in South Africa. In Botswana, 13 Pula 30, Namibia 17 Namibian dollars 61, Zambia 23 Kwacha 55 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 33, Ethiopia 141 bih 79, Uganda 3,000 shilling 523, Tanzania 2,000 shilling 487. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 529. In Egypt, the dollar is 48 Egyptian pound 49. Tunisia 2 dinar 89. Algeria 128 dinar 84. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 86. Angola, the dollar is 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is 2,845 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is at $3,487, platinum at $1,381 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is trading at $68.48 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Thami Ngubeni on Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. Central African Time.
And standing by with the latest from the business of sport, here is Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you so much, Thami. Very good afternoon from the sports days. Now, Premier League clubs have officially splashed out more than ever before in a transfer window, as spending this transfer period surpassed $4 billion. A total of $3.6 billion had been spent by the 31st of August, yesterday. But a big money spending day deals headlined by Alexander Isak's move from Newcastle to Liverpool for a British record of $167 million pushed the total to $4.1 billion. Now, the spending was significantly more than last year, when the outlay of top flight teams was $2.5 billion. The league's record had also been $3.1 billion spent in the 2023 transfer window. A total this year is more than what was spent by the Bundesliga, La Liga, Ligue 1, as well as the Serie A clubs all combined. Well, Manchester City confirmed also the signing of goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma from Paris Saint-Germain on Tuesday for a reported fee of around $41 million. The 26-year-old Italian has penned a 5-year contract deal with Edson, heading to Fenerbahce after 8 years he spent at the club. Onto this story now. A group of former Premier League footballers say they lost tens of millions of US dollars because of their financial advisors. Danny Murphy, Michael Thomas, as well as Rod Wallace are part of the V11 campaign group, which comprises of 11 footballers who invested with Kingsbridge Asset Management in the 1990s and 2000s. Now, former England midfielder Murphy, now a match of the day pundit, believes he lost roughly $8 million because of financial abuse. David McKee, as well as Kevin Magnam, who also ran Kingsbridge, say they deny any of the wrongdoing. Up to 200 footballers may have been affected, with some losing their homes and being made bankrupt. They are now being chased for millions more in tax, despite being told by City of London police they are victims of the crime. Back home now, Tim Sugazi, the president of South African football team Tears Galaxy Queens, has made a plea to the private sector to come to the party and put some money into the women's game, therefore allowing the ladies to make a living as full-time professional football players. He believes this is also key to also making a stronger national team in Banyana Banyana.
It's an unfortunate situation, that our women cannot make a living out of playing professional football despite their talent, despite producing champions of the continent. But still, many clubs cannot afford things. So here, that's where you need a lot of corporate South Africa coming on board, to be honest, to support the game of our women. And, surprising, we've got pro-women companies, that should be coming on board to support our women's game, because the situation is not great.
All right, so that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 4:37 Central African Time. JSE-listed grocery store ShopRite released their annual results to the market today. For the 52 weeks ended June 2025, the company reported that sales revenue came in at 252.7 billion rand. That's up 8.9% on the year before. Operating profit was recorded at 14.9 billion rand, up 18%, while headline earnings per share came in at 1.372 cents, up 15.8%. Shareholders are set to get a gross dividend of 7.81 rand. That's 9.7% on the year before. ShopRite CEO Peter Engelbrecht.
The most interesting thing I actually want to say is we've experienced in some levels deflation. And I like to say this, especially for consumers, that last month we had a situation that we had 13,300 items that was actually cheaper this year than last year. Now, I just want to say, so it's not true that prices never come down. They do come down. We are in a very, very low inflation environment for a retailer. The benefit we have is that we've been able to grow volume at about 4.8% and grow customers by almost 4.5%. In total, we increased our customer visits for the year by over 200 million. And I think that is, a retailer cannot ask for more, is that customers elect, because we all know they've got choices, that customers elect to come to us. And through all of this, and I have to say that we've also mentioned it in our previous discussion, that it's a multi-year or a result of a multi-year investment in technology, in tools to help us to manage pricing. We call it the price optimization tool, our personalization, and in specific, then our extra savings program, where we now have 34 million customers that has or is a member of the extra savings program. And if you equate that to the as a percentage of the adult population in South Africa, that's over 75%. So with that, we have such good data to make data-driven, better decisions. And in the end, that is what helps us to be able to manage our gross margins so much better.
That takes us to exactly 4:40 Central African Time. We turn our focus now to BRICS. The South African University of Johannesburg hosted the second BRICS Innovation Challenge, a UJ BRICS summer school hosted by the Pan-African Institute for Thought and Conversation and the College of Business and Economics at the University of Johannesburg. They provide a platform for students to showcase innovative solutions that align with entrepreneurship and digital innovation, this being in line with the BRICS Plus development agenda. For more on this, we joined this afternoon by Cecil Masoka, Acting Chief Director for Overseas Bilateral Cooperation at the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, responsible for the BRICS Cooperation on Science, Technology and Innovation. A very warm welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Good afternoon to you, Thami, and good afternoon to your listeners.
So how is the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation supporting the scaling of youth-led innovations like those presented at the BRICS Innovation Challenge? And I guess the focus being really specifically in those areas and in those communities that are currently underserved?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation has been working very hard in developing the overall national system of innovation, and we had to put some institutional mechanisms in place to support the universities and also to support academia in translating their research into innovations that can benefit the society at large. And with that, what we have done in the department is establish what we call the National Intellectual Property Management Office, NIPMO, and this office is supporting intellectual management in the universities to enable what happens in the universities to be translated into innovations that can impact society. And we have also established what we call the Technology Innovation Agency that provides funding support, especially where you have the innovation that has not received a very early stage ideation level, where it's difficult to attract financing or funding from the private sector or from venture capital institutions. And that's where the Technology Innovation Agency provides financial support and assistance to enable these technologies and innovations to come up to the fore. Similarly with the Innovation Bridge portal, where all of these entities or innovations that are supported across the science system are located and profiled with international interest organizations, with international partner countries that we're working with, and to make sure that they participate in a variety of opportunities to enable them to commercialize the innovations that they have. So we are doing a lot of policy work in making sure that these innovations that are happening far-flung areas, they have a space and opportunity to be profiled, to be captured, to be presented where they will have the opportunities to attract investment, and also to be trialed and see whether they cannot also consider some convergence with other technologies that are happening in other different places of the world, to see whether there's compatibility and convergence, thereby enabling us not only to have a South African innovation, but a South African innovation that's partnering with an international partner, thereby having a much bigger impact, not only in South Africa, but at the world at large.
And it really does remove any sort of constraints and borders. But if you could maybe just give us a couple of examples as we talk specific now in ways that we as South Africa is leveraging the BRICS Plus partnerships to foster these cross-border collaborations among young entrepreneurs as well as innovators.
Well, that's true. We've had opportunities to participate on an annual basis in what is called the BRICS Innovation Challenge, where Brazil on an annual basis hosts the Innovation Challenge. And from the South African side, at a bilateral level, we select the best technologies that we want to profile and showcase at the Brazilian Innovation Challenge. Similarly, with India, they have what they call the Innovation Tech Challenge, and we have our participants from South Africa participating in those initiatives. What we have seen and what we have done also as South Africa beyond this is looking at establishing what we call the South African National Tech Challenge. Now, this Tech Challenge is going to be established or officially launched during the G20 ministerial in September this month in Pretoria, where the grand prize of 1 million rands will be won by the best innovator. And what we have done is look at the policies, best practices, use cases, lessons learned from our BRICS countries, and see how we can improve on our incubators or on our accelerator platforms, technology parks and technology hubs, how we can structure them in such a manner that they respond to the innovations that we're seeing coming out of these institutions.
I mean, we are seeing this partnership, and we're seeing this challenge coming out of universities, and even NIPMO, which you've spoken about a little bit earlier on, focusing on students that are already at the tertiary level. But I wonder how the department plans to integrate digital skills development into the national education curriculum, so that by the time the young people actually get to university, they already have a really firm foundation and understanding of what the needs and the requirements are to be competitive, and be aligned, and in all instances be future ready for the fourth industrial revolution. If you could take us through your efforts in that arena.
Yes. Well, I mean, firstly, I think we would like, as the department, to congratulate the University of Johannesburg in sort of having the UJ BRICS summer school. So they have taken, at a national level, a BRICS engagement that happens amongst different countries, and as South Africa as a member country, and constructed and conceptualized a summer school that supports students in the university level, in profiling them, in making sure that their ideas see the day of light, but they also provide a platform for that to actually happen. We appreciate that a lot, and it means a lot to the department and the other government departments that we're working with. So with regards to your question specifically on the lower level or before higher education, the basic education level, we are working with the basic education department, looking at the ways in which we can contribute towards the design of a curriculum that supports the type of skill set that we require in the future. And we have seen a lot of initiatives that were done over the years. One will recall the Naledi schools. One would recall the issuing of tablets to the university, to the school level students, and so on. All of these initiatives, in one form or the other, even though it was more at pocket-sized level and not at national scale, they were meant to, for us to have a sense of, when we pilot these type of initiatives and these interventions, what comes out of that, what is it that we see, synthesize that information, and then inform the type of policy design that we then need to undertake. And similarly, we are also working very closely with the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies to look at the emerging technologies. AI is a very big buzzword, but there's a lot of work that we do in the department. For example, if one takes the high-performance computing infrastructure that we have summer schools around that. We have outreach to the different schooling level. We have an annual conference that takes place all over the country and rotates in different provinces, where there's also an outreach to schools surrounding the conference to understand that it's not only about AI, it's not only about ICT. There's a whole suite of different activities happening that are very critical in these spaces.
And very comprehensive as well. So we thank you very much, Mr. Masoga, for coming through this afternoon and giving us quite an in-depth analysis of the efforts that are being done to make sure that the youth of the country, and indeed the youth in the BRICS countries, are future ready for IR. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Mr. Cecil Masoka. He's the Acting Chief Director for Overseas Bilateral Cooperation at the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. He's responsible for the BRICS cooperation on science, technology and innovation. He takes us to exactly 10 minutes to 5 p.m.
Annika Longi sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons danser au son de Haya, que je dédicace à vous tous, chers auditeurs, qui êtes en train de suivre cette émission Mix Vibration. N'oubliez pas, vous pouvez nous suivre à partir de l'application SABC+. Vous choisissez Channel Africa pour suivre l'émission en direct. Nous allons danser au son de Haya.
Annika Longi, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Thami Ngubeni on Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. Central African Time.
In this week's market slot with FNB, we are joined on the line by Thanda Stole, FNB Senior Economist. A very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me.
So there was a much higher PPI print last week at 1.5%. I'm driving straight into it, as you can see. And that's up from 0.6%, which we saw in the month of June. What does this mean specifically for manufacturing PMI, which is being released today?
So we saw an increase, as you have said, to 1.5% on a year-on-year basis, and the monthly pressure was around 0.7%. That was largely driven by transport equipment, non-metallic minerals, as well as the fact that petroleum-related product decline has actually slowed. So that's why then there is an upward pressure on overall PPI. But as far as what it means for manufacturing PMI, which actually came out yesterday, I think it indicated that the PPI that track prices actually slowed a bit, indicating that maybe for the month of August, PPI should actually remain contained as a result of a slightly stronger rand and also favorable oil prices. But overall, what the manufacturing PMI did is that it fell again below 50 neutral mark. So now it's currently sitting at around 49.5% from 50.8% previously. So basically, it temporarily lifted above the 50 neutral mark, and now it's sitting below that, indicating that firstly, demand is weak, both domestic demand and external demand. If you look at new sales orders index, it fell by about 8.5 points to 47.4 in the month of August. So it does indicate that there is some challenges related to demand both domestically and externally, and manufacturers seem to indicate that the impact of tariff is weighing on the manufacturing PMI. But also we saw business activity index falling to 45.8 index points. So that's like 1.3 point drop, remaining below the 50 neutral mark for an extended time now, indicating that production remains constrained. So that's where we are in terms of the manufacturing PMI. In terms of what the actual manufacturing production data is going to tell us when it comes out over the next few weeks, we'll see. But we know that the manufacturing sector in the second quarter likely contributed positively to GDP growth, just based on that positive quarter-on-quarter growth that we have experienced so far.
Could you take us through the new vehicles sales data? I mean, those are always quite good indicators of the health of the consumer.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the automotive sector at the moment, particularly if you look at new vehicle sales, those have been growing quite decently over the past few months. So the latest print, which was released yesterday, indicated that new vehicle sales grew by about 18.7% year on year. That's equivalent to about 8,292 units higher compared to last year. So we're sitting at about 51,880 units now in terms of the month of August when it comes to new vehicle sales. What has largely been driving that over the past few months is the strong growth that we've seen in new passenger car sales. So it seems the stable and low inflation environment, combined with the reduction in interest rates that we've seen so far by the Reserve Bank, as well as the fact that there is some increasing demand related to entry-level and less affordable vehicles, particularly from the East. Those have been driving this strong performance that we see in new passenger car sales. But now we're starting to see also growth recorded in new commercial vehicle sales, which has been happening for about 5 consecutive months now. If you look at that component for the month of August, it grew by about 10.3% year on year. So there seems to be growth across both passenger car sales and and commercial vehicle sales, but the biggest gain has been on new passenger car sales.
A bit later on this week, we are going to be finding out the latest on the state of business confidence. But if you could deliberate on that for a moment, what could boost the confidence and what could drag it?
I think fundamentally between the previous release for quarter 2 and the upcoming one on Thursday, nothing really has changed in terms of domestic fundamentals. So I don't expect the PCI to actually show any significant improvements from that perspective. We know that it's likely that the survey went out in the first week of August. around that time we were facing so the 30% reciprocal tariffs was going to be effective, I think, on the 7th of August. So that would have been in the mind of the respondents, but also just ongoing geopolitical issues, trade tensions that are happening at a global level. All those would have affected how respondents responded on the survey. Domestically, we have not had issues of load shedding, but there are still structural constraints that probably are weighing on business confidence related to slowly improving ports and rail performance, but also other issues, particularly at municipality level, that are likely weighing on business confidence. So overall, I think that we're still going to have a situation where majority of businesses will indicate that they don't feel optimistic about prevailing business conditions. So currently at 40 index points, the BCI indicates that 6 out of 10 businesses are not satisfied about prevailing business conditions. And that has come down, that has actually increased from the previous print in Q1, where the index was at 45 points. So yeah, I think we'll remain at that level until we see concrete improvement from a fundamental perspective domestically, but also global dynamics are going to be important.
All right, Tanda Setole, thank you so much for that update as we focus on the latest markets and shifts in the business environment. We thank you so much for your time, Tanda. Have yourself a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Tanda Setole, senior economist at FNB. He brings us to exactly 2 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time as we say bonjour to Vue d'Afrique.
Bonjour, bonjour Thami, bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vue d'Afrique. Il sera question du Cameroun. Un peu plus de 2 ans après les faits, le tribunal militaire de Yaoundé est enfin entré dans le vif du sujet, dans l'affaire du journaliste Martinez Zogo. Et on parlera de la Centrafrique où l'opposant anicé Georges Dologuélé a annoncé lundi avoir renoncé à sa nationalité française. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup, Joël. Well, that's how we come to this edition of Africa in Business, the end of it. Thank you to our amazing team, our producer Mabo Boloka, technical producer Catherine Maleka, social media Sfiso Hlope, news desk Matapelo Mahape, economics desk Chanduko Legege, and on sport Musibudi Makura. I'm Thami Ngubeni, and this has been your edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Over now to the French desk.